Welcome in. Today, we're really diving deep into Dario Amodei's thoughts about the future,
Mm-hmm.
specifically his idea of a compressed 21st century. And it's all driven by powerful AI, which is
Correct.
fascinating stuff. And I know our listeners, you value your time.
Yeah.
You want concise and insightful content.
Absolutely.
So consider this your, shortcut
Yeah.
to understanding Amodei's core arguments here.
It's interesting because Amodei, as CEO of Anthropic, right?
Right.
A company that's really focused on AI safety,
Mm.
he's known for being, pretty cautious about this technology, where it's headed.
Right.
But his essay actually presents this surprisingly optimistic view of the future,
Yeah.
shaped by what he calls powerful AI.
It is. You're right. He actually kind of suggests that most of us underestimate the potential benefits of AI.
Yeah.
He's been very intentionally avoiding hyping it up and instead focusing on what he sees as kind of the realistic game changer here.
Totally. Amodei really wants to cut through all the noise
Mhm.
and focus on the true potential of AI to drive progress at a scale and speed we haven't really seen before,
Right.
surpassing even what Nobel Prize winners can do.
Yeah, it's a big
Yeah.
big claim. So when he talks about powerful AI, what does he actually mean by that? Because it's not just about advanced computing power
Right.
or anything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's talking about AI that can not only understand super complex information,
Yeah.
but also interact with computers, the internet, as easily as we do, functioning autonomously and collaboratively.
Wow.
To give you a sense of this, he uses this really striking image of a country of geniuses in a data center to
Okay.
give you a sense of that scale.
Yeah, that image really captures the sheer scale of intelligence he's envisioning.
Yeah,
But he also provides kind of a reality check.
he does.
He introduces this concept of marginal returns to intelligence, arguing that, the real world does have its limitations.
For sure, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he's emphasizing that even with these crazy AI capabilities,
right.
we're still bound by the pace of the physical world,
Mhm.
how long it takes to, do experiments, build new facilities, all of that.
Right.
And that also includes the availability and quality of data.
Yeah, especially in fields like biology, where it's not like you can just generate data out of thin air.
Yeah, totally.
So it's not just about how smart the AI is, but how quickly the information it generates can be actually put into action.
Exactly. And Moder really stresses that AI isn't about instant solutions.
Right.
Its power lies in accelerating the entire research process.
Right.
And he argues that problems that seem impossible today, especially in areas like biology and medicine, could become solvable with enough focused intelligence applied over time.
So it's about strategic intelligence.
Yes.
Not just raw processing power.
Yes, exactly.
And this is where Amodei's vision gets really interesting, because he starts to focus on the future of biology and healthcare.
Yeah.
And he makes some pretty bold predictions.
He does, yeah.
But we'll get into those in a bit. So let's talk about those predictions Amodei is making.
Okay.
He suggests that AI could actually compress 50 to 100 years
Wow.
of progress in biology and medicine
Yeah.
into the next decade,
Uh-huh.
which is
That's a bold.
pretty bold
Oh.
claim, to say
Yeah.
the least.
Yeah.
Um,
And his reasoning here, or at least part of it,
mhm.
is that he thinks that major advancements in these fields often stem from just a few key discoveries.
Right, like CRISPR, mRNA vaccines, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Right.
He argues that it wasn't just about massive funding. It
Right.
was about having the right,
Yeah,
minds on the problem at the right time.
totally. And he believes that,
There are many such discoveries out there waiting to be kind of unearthed, and that AI could dramatically accelerate that process.
yeah, it's like that saying,
Yeah.
chance favors the prepared mind.
Yeah.
But in this case, we're not just waiting for chance.
Right.
We're actively
Exactly.
preparing the ground for these discoveries.
Well, yeah, and it's not just about fundamental research either.
Right.
He talks about AI revolutionizing clinical trials, which, as we know,
Huge bottleneck.
can take years, even decades to complete.
And it's a huge bottleneck to actually getting treatments
Absolutely.
to the people who need them.
Yeah. Amodei kind of envisions AI streamlining this whole process.
Oh.
You know, creating better disease models, identifying patterns in data that we might miss, leading to faster drug development and approval.
It's like having a really, really efficient research assistant who can just crank through all this data
Totally.
and connect the dots way faster than any human team ever could.
And here's another point that I thought was really interesting. You know, he compares this to the potential for rapid adoption in biomedicine compared to other fields where, you know, there's a lot of societal resistance. He points to, like, the rollout of the COVID mRNA vaccines as an example of, like,
how quickly it can.
When the benefits are clear and the stakes are high, even complex innovations can be implemented quickly.
So Amodei is, you know, very careful to say, like, look, these are educated guesses, not guarantees.
Of course.
But the picture he paints is pretty compelling.
It is.
So let's dive into some of the specifics.
Okay,
Because he actually, like, lays out some of the changes he foresees.
He does.
And he starts with a future where, like, infectious diseases could basically become a thing of the past.
So imagine a world without the flu, the common cold, or even the threat of, like, new pandemics. That's the future he's talking about, where AI-powered vaccines, these kind of targeted interventions, potentially even addressing, like, animal carriers of disease could make these diseases a distant memory.
And it's not just about eradicating existing diseases. It's about preventing new ones from emerging in the first place, which is a whole other level.
Oh, absolutely. And then he moves on. He doesn't just stop with infectious diseases.
Of course not.
He says, you know, AI could have a huge impact on, like, one of humanity's biggest killers, cancer. He suggests that AI could lead to something like a 95% reduction in cancer mortality.
Wow.
Which is, I mean,
that's huge.
That's almost unimaginable. And he sees that happening through a combination of, you know, early detection, personalized treatments, and even preventative measures, all driven by these AI insights.
I mean, a 95% reduction in cancer deaths would just be, like,
transformative
for individuals, for healthcare systems
globally. I mean, it would just be
absolutely. And he doesn't stop there, right?
Of course not.
He also envisions a future where genetic diseases are tackled, potentially even before birth.
Like right from the...
He points to things like, you know, AI-enhanced embryo screening, advancements in gene editing, like CRISPR. Imagine a world where these debilitating genetic diseases are just not a part of human experience anymore.
It's wild to think
about.
And then, as if that weren't enough.
He
also thinks AI could be the key to finally unraveling, like, Alzheimer's disease, which is a challenge that's, you know,
it's
stumped researchers for decades.
So many people.
And he even suggests that AI could lead to breakthroughs in treating, like, chronic conditions like diabetes, obesity, heart disease, like all these things that we just kind of, like, get to assume are
just part of life.
Exactly.
He even uses this term biological freedom, suggesting that, like, we could have much greater control over our physical forms in the future, like everything from our weight and appearance to even our reproductive capability. And this future also includes the possibility of, you know, extending human lifespans potentially to an average of 150 years.
That's wild.
Building on research that's already shown, you know, promising results in animals. So, I mean, just these advancements in biology and healthcare alone are remarkable.
It's mind-blowing. But Amodei doesn't stop there. He sees a parallel revolution brewing in the world of neuroscience and mental health. And again, with AI playing this really pivotal role.
So let's unpack that a little bit, because that's a whole other can of worms, I think.
It is a big can of worms.
So we've talked about AI transforming healthcare, but what about its impact on how we understand, like, the brain and mental health.
Yeah, this is where Amodei's insights into how AI works, like internally, gets really interesting.
Okay.
He's basically saying we could use those same techniques that we use to understand these, complex artificial neural networks,
right,
and apply them to the human brain.
So we can use our understanding of one complex system to kind of shed light on another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Like imagine AI helping us figure out like the brain's learning mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
Or developing these like super precise tools to actually measure and maybe even influence neural activity.
And then, create these personalized mental health interventions that are tailored to your specific like brain structure and function.
So it sounds like Amodei is saying that mental illness wouldn't just be like treatable.
Yeah.
It could potentially be curable.
Yeah, and he even suggests that we might be able to address what he calls structural brain differences, like you see in...
right, like psychopathy, things like...
Exactly, yeah, like psychopathy.
Which is, I mean, that's a whole other...
Which is huge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because that opens up all these new avenues for treatment and maybe even prevention.
And then, of course, this ability to potentially prevent mental illness through genetic screening.
Right.
Which raises all sorts of ethical questions.
Huge.
Yeah. And it's important to note that Amodei acknowledges those ethical complexities.
Okay.
Like he's not shying away from the challenges that come with these kinds of advancements.
Right.
He actually thinks that AI can also help us,
navigate these ethical dilemmas and make sure we're using these technologies responsibly.
Right. So it's not just about the scientific breakthroughs themselves. It's about like really thinking through
the bigger picture,
the implications.
Yeah. And how it impacts society as a whole.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, but Amodei paints this picture of the future.
Yeah.
It's almost like a utopia.
It's pretty mind-blowing, right?
Yeah. Disease could be distant memory. Human potential is amplified by AI.
Yeah.
But like we've been discussing, this future isn't without its challenges.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not given.
It's not like a sit back and it'll just happen kind of thing.
Right.
It requires us to make conscious choices. And
yeah, I mean, he's really challenging us to think about these things now.
Think ahead.
To be proactive.
So that we can shape this future in a way that's beneficial.
And to make sure that it benefits everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Not just a select few.
Well, if Amodei's even half right, it sounds like we're on the verge of this, really remarkable transformation.
Absolutely.
So I think as our listeners are kind of reflecting on this idea of a compressed 21st century.
A lot to think about.
It's a lot to think about.
It really is.
And, we always want to leave our listeners with something to kind of ponder. What role do you want to play in this future?
It's a big question.
It is a big question, but these are the things we need to be thinking about, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're not saying we have all the answers.
Right.
But we're asking the questions.
Exactly, because we're all in this together.
We are, yeah. And it's going to take all of us.
And the future really is unwritten, but with some careful thought and a commitment to using these advancements for good.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of potential for positive change.
A lot of potential for a better future, I think.
I think so, too.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's an exciting time to be alive, even with all the...
It is, yeah. It's a little daunting.
It's daunting. It's a little scary, but it's also incredibly exciting.
It's an adventure, that's for sure.
It is. It is. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this deep dive into Dario Amodei's vision of the future.
Fascinating stuff.
It really is. And as always, thanks to our listeners for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.